Welcome to episode 32 of Take Your Points. I'm your host, Ronan Scott. If there was a theme for this week's show, it would be modern GAA. I have three guests this week, two of our newest columnists, and also I have Diarmaid Marsden from the Ulster Council, and all three are talking about various modern elements of the GAA. Diarmaid's on to talk about the Sports Uniting Communities initiative that's happening in the Ulster GAA, which is bringing non-traditional GAA people into the circle, I suppose. Marie is our nutrition columnist and has been working with us for almost a year now. And she is in to talk about nutrition in the GAA and what she's learned so far from writing her column. And we also have Gareth Fox, who is a sports hypnotherapist, who has been giving us his insight over the past number of months about how sports hypnotherapy and sports psychology can help GAA players, and in talking about some of the things he's been working on with various GAA players. So that's going to be our show this week. Let's get started. So thanks for joining us, Marie. I'm Marie Mulholland. You have been our columnist now for a number of months, but I wanted to talk to you about nutrition and what things you've been doing with the GAA clubs and the county teams that you've been working on. But just to start, I wonder, could you tell us how have you enjoyed writing for Gaelic Life for the past few months now?
Yeah, I've loved it. It's been really enjoyable. Since we were children at home, we always would have the Gaelic Life on a Thursday. It would have been sitting on the kitchen table. Normally would be hopping through it to see who's on Team of the Week and do we know anybody that's on it. But I was delighted when the opportunity came up, because I suppose it's a way of getting factual information across to players who maybe don't have access to nutrition services within their club or team. In this day and age, nutrition is one of those subjects that there's a lot of conflicting messages being put across, whether it be the internet or social media. There's always a new fad diet that, some media outlet is promoting. And for me, it's really important that players are getting the correct and scientifically backed information to support their training, to support their health and their well-being as well. So for me, my aim over these columns and over these pieces was to, I suppose, put relatable topics across that, are commonly asked questions in Gaelic, and answer those questions, but to do so that is evidence-based, it's factual information, and to put that across in a way that's applicable and is practical for players. If someone takes one small thing away from an article that I write, well then I'm happy with that. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it so far. And I've not been kicked off the newspaper so far, so fingers crossed. So no, I'm looking forward to keeping going with the column and kind of seeing what people want from it.
Okay, just finally, what you've worked in other sports. What could the GAA learn from those other sports, or what lessons, I suppose, do you think they could learn?
Yeah, so I suppose rugby's the only big one for me, in terms of having a good bit of input with. So I think that, if you look at it, Gaelic as a whole has progressed, leaps and bounds over the past couple of years. In terms of resources that they have, in terms of services available to teams, and even when you look at club level, GPS is being used for stats. There's a larger emphasis on support services. You look at strength and conditioning. A lot of inter-county teams, but also club teams, have got nutrition input, have got sports psychology input, which is brilliant to see. So I definitely think that, when you compare Gaelic to other sports these days, that there definitely is, I suppose, a closer link to the professional side of things. There really is, as it goes on. I feel in some cases when you're comparing the GAA club to the likes of a professional rugby team, there's obviously going to be differences. And I think that a big thing would be behaviours off the field, as I touched on, that it's just making it, it's making the onus on to the player themselves, that they do have to do that little bit of extra preparation in terms of planning their meals and planning their snacks for whenever they're going to be at work and they know they've training the next day or the next evening. It's going to be, what are your thoughts on the day before a game? How are you going to carb load when you know that you're working on a building site? So it's taking the time to think about that and action it yourself. So what sorts of meals and snacks can you take with you to make sure that you're adequately fueled and also recovered around sessions? I think a big thing as well would be, sleep. So that's an off-field behaviour, so are you getting a good night's sleep after a game or after training? The lead up to a championship game that week, have you made a conscious effort to go to bed early and make sure that you're getting, your 7 to 9 hours sleep a night? Because sleep is just, you can't say enough about a good night's sleep, but even in terms of recovery, it's just so important. So I think those are the sorts of things that Gaelic players should really move in the direction of if they've not already. I think that, there are other things that in professional sports, players have ventured down, even things like relaxation, meditation type practices around like the recovery element of the sport. Whenever you do have a little bit more time, I think that for some players, and again, it's only some players, recovery could be that little bit better, not just nutritionally, but in the practices that they do after sessions. So it really is, I suppose, just, being that little bit more independent, because you have no one that's going to provide your breakfast, your lunch and your dinner for you on site around training. And that's something that you just need to take ownership of throughout the week.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate that. Okay, I'd like to welcome Diarmaid Marsden from the Ulster Council to the show. Diarmaid, thanks for coming on. Can you tell us what the Ulster Council does to support the sports communities initiative?
We have been involved in this outreach work for the last 10 or 12 years. We now employ 3 community sports development officers to work in specific geographical areas with their equivalents from Ulster Rugby and the Irish FA to deliver all the aspects associated with this programme. So these can be the Game of Three Halves, Have a Go days, schools programmes, club sport for peace days, volunteer development initiatives, inclusive club workshops, and much, much more. So Ulster GA are very, very supportive of this, and we continue to deliver this outreach work for the betterment of our communities and societies in general.
In our last show, we covered the East Belfast Club. Maybe tell us a little bit about that and any other initiatives that we might be interested in.
East Belfast, I suppose, was a local project developed and delivered by GA enthusiasts living in East Belfast, living in that greater East Belfast area. I watched, like many others, with interest as it grew from a simple tweet to a situation where there are now 4 codes playing. We have male and female representation, and I have to pay tribute to the founder members of that club, and all in County Down and Ulster GA and the wider GA community are fully supportive of their aims and ambitions. In terms of Ulster GA, we obviously encourage anything that will help our games flourish, particularly in areas not traditionally associated with Gaelic games. We've been proactive over the last 10 years with our Mulholland initiative and the Game of Three Halves, and both of which have had representation in the East Belfast area. The Mulholland initiative is a schools project where we try and engage with Year 11 boys and girls from the maintained, controlled and integrated school sectors. We try and bring them together by firstly giving a presentation on the GAA and what it's about. Then we have taster sessions in football and hurling and camogie. From that, the school will then select 4 or 5 pupils from the boys' side and from the girls' side to come together and mix with other teams from their area or other schools from their area. And therefore you would have a team called, say for example, the Belfast Mulhollands, and there would be representation from 3 or 4 different schools, all from different backgrounds, all with little background in the GAA, if any. And I suppose we're using Gaelic games as a way of bringing young people together. This has been very successful over the last 12 years. In fact, one of our initial programmes, the very first one, was a Belfast team who had representation from the Corpus Christi School, St Patrick's Barnegeha, Boys Model and Ashfield Boys, and they actually went to Washington to play in the Continental Youth Championships, a Gaelic Games competition in North America. And that was a fantastic experience for the boys, the schools, the teachers, everyone involved, and that's grown from strength to strength, and it's something we continue to do now in many areas across the province of Ulster. I think we have over 60 schools engaged so far, and we add new schools to the programme every year, and something like 20 different areas or stroke towns that engage with the programme. And again, that's just further enhancing the engagements of the young people to break down those barriers through sport. Another example that Ulster GAA deliver is the game of three halves, and again this is in conjunction with Ulster Rugby and the Irish FA. So it's an opportunity for young people to come together to try those three sports. So if you're from a background where you've played Gaelic games, you'll get an opportunity to play football and rugby. If you're from a rugby background and you've never played Gaelic games, etc., this is your opportunity to try it out with people from a different background again, and therefore we're using the three sports to mix people, to play as a team, to learn new skills and break down those cultural and social barriers. And again, that has been very, very well received. And like the Gaelic initiative, we have been in East Belfast doing summer programmes over the last 10 years as well. So it's one of the areas that we find really important, and we hope to deliver on this more and more over the coming years.
And finally, what would you suggest for those, or would you encourage people to get involved in the GAA? I'm sure you would, but how would you encourage them to do that? And perhaps for those who want to get non-traditional GAA people involved, how might they do that?
The community benefits for playing for or joining a GAA club are immense, in terms of being part of something, having an identity with the club, and a pride of place, and belonging. Somewhere you can say, I'm proud to be from this place, and that's what the GAA is built on, community. I encourage anyone interested in considering having a go to please do so, to make contact with the local club representative. I think our clubs, counties and ourselves in Ulster GAA can probably do more in terms of that outreach. I think we could promote our non-playing activities that are community focused, our couch to 5Ks, our yoga classes, our walking clubs, etc. We can keep knocking on the doors of local schools to provide coaching opportunities and a link to that local GAA club. We can link in with other local sports clubs to create partnerships and other community groups to advertise where our activities are taking place. I don't know any GAA club that would turn away any new prospecting young players. So those interested in joining would be welcomed with open arms.
Jim, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time. I'd like to welcome Gareth Fox to the show. Gareth's he's a sports hypnotherapist. He's been working outside the country but is moving back very soon. He really gives us advice on sports psychology and sports hypnotherapy and how we can take the mental side of our game. But I wanted to ask Gareth on to the show to sort of explain about what he's been doing with us so far, what we can learn from sports hypnotherapy and sports psychology, and also I wanted to ask him about the recent Joe Brawley column about alternative medicine, which he did a follow-up to a number of weeks ago. So Gareth, thanks for coming on. Could you start by explaining a bit of your background?
So I'm an RTT hypnotherapist, and I specialise in sports hypnotherapy, working on peak performance, working in 3 different categories: injury recovery, working out repetitive sports performance problems, and also in increased performance.
What can teams who are thinking about getting involved in sports psychology or sports hypnotherapy, what can they do to take advantage of that?
What I do it gives the impression that it's perhaps complicated, and I think the name hypnotherapy puts an awful lot of people off. But it's not rocket science. It's basically understanding how the mind works allows you to then manipulate or take advantage of the mind and push the mind to other places that give you an advantage. And so the only thing I simply do is that I use the knowledge and the science of how the mind works and to produce advantageous effects on the individual. This can work with the team environment as well. If you, and I know that this goes round through sports psychology. They take the example of the man who came into the British cycling team. I can't remember his name, and his idea was to break everything apart, improve the individual aspect or the individual element of the grand thing by 1%, and then when you put it back together again, you've made a vast improvement. So with regards teams, that's a very simple, easy thing to do, which is that you work on the individual player, but you work on all the players in the team, and then when they come together, each one has an individual improvement, which means that the team has a mass improvement. So that's basically how the individual can take advantage of it, but teams can take advantage of it as well, because you improve the individual, all individuals, you improve the team.
Finally, I would like to ask you about the recent Joe Brawley column where he dismissed alternative medicine. I know you weren't happy with that, unhappy with how he dismissed alternative medicine. I wonder why you could explain why you were unhappy and why you think perhaps he was off the mark with that column.
I think Joe Brawley's article is a Joe Brawley article. He is the king of picking on things. You know, he's that little irritation that creates an even bigger irritation, and he does it on purpose, I think. But yeah, this general attitude that Joe has, and in a way, in his article, he saved himself, because he said that anything that isn't double blind tested is bullshit. And he saves himself because he writes off something which is belief. He writes off the idea of belief being beneficial in healing or in curing or in advancing. And belief has now been tested. Belief has been doubly blind tested, and we understand the benefits of belief. So in a way, he saves himself. He says anything that isn't this is bullshit. And then this actually is that thing, so it's not bullshit. So he put in a little clause that allowed him to escape freely. But yeah, there is this general attitude that anything that calls for belief is bullshit. And I think he called them, was it bullshit artists, and it was bollocks. Those are the words that he used, typical Joe words, you know, in order to pick at something. But the issue is that if you follow up on science and you follow the workings of new science, you would understand and know that these things now have been tested. This is the new science. This is why so many things are coming to light. There's so many new things. It's because we understand now how the brain works. The subconscious mind works as an autopilot during the day. You know, it does all the little things that we do during the day that we don't think of. That's all from your subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is built on programs, and those programs are actually your belief about your environment. So that's all completely tested. My issue was that he, because of his lack of understanding of that, his lack of being up to date, he was writing off so many beneficial things that could benefit so many people, not only in the world of sport, but in the world of medicine. And I thought it was quite rude and really ignorant of him and people like him to write off something that now exists and has become a fundamental part of science. So that was my issue with that, and I think, like I said, it was typical Joe Brawley.
Gareth, appreciate that. Thank you for your time. Okay, that's our show for this week. I appreciate you watching. If you want to see any more of these shows, they are all online on our site. You can go on there now. You can go right back to the very start, and you can see them on NVTV's site as well. We'll be doing more going forward. I hope you enjoyed this one. I also encourage you, if you do want to, subscribe to the Gaelic Life, where you'll get plenty of stories online and our PDF edition on our website. So I encourage you to subscribe there. But that's our show for this week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again.